What's up, everybody? This is Justin. I'm joined with Nick. We haven't made a video in a while, but the draft was yesterday. And in this video, we will be talking about our 2016 NFL Draft first round fantasy football impact. And just like we expected, Goff and Wentz went 1 and 2. When you trade that many picks, odds are you're going to take a quarterback, so there really was no surprise there. Goff had a lot more reps and playing time than Wentz did, so there really wasn't a surprise that he went 1. But talking about fantasy value, Nick, what do you think his fantasy value is for this season?
I think Goff had. I really don't think he'll be a QB1 in standard 12-team leagues or even 10-team leagues because of the situation with the Rams. I know they do have Gurley and they can feed him the ball, take some of the pressure off, but I don't think he'll have immediate impact in the Rams offense.
Yeah, I really don't think you can trust this guy. Unless you're in a dynasty league, I think it's more for a long term. Same thing with Wentz. They say Wentz isn't going to... Because Goff is going to start day one. He's like the face moving to LA.
Wentz
him and Gurley.
might not even
but
start
Wentz,
week
they
one.
say he's not going to start. But odds are, who knows what's going with Bradford. I do think he's going to get a playing time eventually this season. Because, if they lose a couple games, everyone's going to say, play Wentz, play Wentz. But either way, he should stay on the waiver wire. Unless you're in a dynasty league, he doesn't have much value.
I don't think either of them have really good value this year.
There's
they
just
have
so
more
many other
long-term
quarterbacks
value.
out there that you could play. But the next guy, Dallas Cowboys, who, Jerry Jones always likes the big name guys. They took Elliott at 4. And this guy is going to be an RB1. He's going to probably get taken within the first 2 rounds because he's a great pass blocker. And you saw what Darren McFadden did. We saw what DeMarco Murray did in this offense coming in immediately. They have an elite offensive line. With Tony Romo healthy, he's going to get a lot of touches. Who knows? They have Dez Bryant on the outside. And looking at the running backs this year, Le'Veon Bell, he's going to be taking the first round, but he's coming off a major injury. Jamal Charles coming off a major injury.
Yeah,
Matt Forte got traded. If you look at the rankings, David Johnson's ranked, top 5 running backs. Thomas Rawls, another guy who really hasn't proven himself. So if you look at the running backs this year, it's very weak, and you don't know what's going to go on. So would I take him in the first round? Probably. I would feel more comfortable taking him in the second round. What about you?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. The running back class this year is shallow, and there's a lot of questions. But with defenses, they can't really focus solely on Elliott and stack the box like they do with the Vikings and Peterson, because you have Dez, Witten, and Romo healthy. You got to worry about them. And the offensive line, like you said, is elite, and you saw what DeMarco Murray did.
It's very rare you draft a rookie that high, but this guy is like a can't miss. If he plays 16 games, he's gonna get RB1 numbers. But the thing is, he really never played a game, so it's gonna be hard to trust him as a first round pick. So I would feel more comfortable as a second round pick. But with all these guys who are hurt or traded, it's gonna be interesting to see how the first round falls.
Yeah, I think the Peterson, Gurley, those guys will go top, but I think more towards later first round, Elliott will definitely go.
Then Jalen Ramsey went to the Jags, probably one of the best players in the draft. But the next offensive player that was taken was, I believe, Corey Coleman, the first wide receiver taking off the board. He went to the Cleveland Browns. And what do you think on that?
Yeah, they were in desperate need for a playmaker, and their pass attack isn't that bad now. They have Barnage, who really broke out last season. If Josh Gordon could make his way onto the field with Coleman, he could have a pretty nice season.
Yeah, who knows what's up with Josh Gordon at this point, but whether he comes back or not, I really like Corey Coleman. I think him and Josh Doctson are the 2 guys who have the best fantasy value at the wide receiver position this year. I definitely think he's going to put up numbers for you, and I would probably draft him as maybe, your wide receiver 3, and he could maybe eventually come up and be a wide receiver 2, but I wouldn't take this guy until maybe the 10th round or somewhere like their 8th to 10th round.
Yeah, I definitely think around that time he could be a steal. Maybe not for the first 4, 5, 6 games, but later in the season during playoff time, he'll be a proven wide receiver too.
The next wide receiver who was taken was Will Fuller. This guy is opposite DeAndre Hopkins, but I don't think he has as much value as Corey Coleman does, just due to the fact that, Brock Osweiler's coming in, Lamar Miller, they do have DeAndre Hopkins, but I feel like this guy is going to be a better asset for the Texans rather than fantasy value, because I feel like he's a guy like Tyler Lockett. He's going to have his games. He's going to be inconsistent, but he's a speedster who could beat you over the top, like a Deshaun Jackson, but I really don't trust these guys as an every week starter.
Yeah, I think Fuller's going to be a boom or bust wide receiver 3, kind of like Deshaun Jackson, like you said, for most of his career. The opposite Hopkins, defense have to worry about him, and he'll have his big games like Tyler Lockett did this year.
And then 3 wide receivers went in a row. After him, you got Josh Doctson, who I'm high on. He's in a good position to succeed with Kirk Cousins, who had a phenomenal year. They had Jordan Reed, and this guy has the size, he has the speed, and I think he's going to be one of the best wide receivers out of this rookie class.
Yeah, Josh Doc. After this season, he's really going to be the only Redskins wide receiver with Deshaun Jackson and Pierre Garçon leaving.
And they also said they were good. Yeah, one of them are probably going to be gone. What's your thoughts on Laquan Treadwell at 23 going to Minnesota?
I really like him going to the Vikings. With the Cowboys, they stacked the box for Peterson, and they would leave one-on-one. He's going to get a lot of one-on-one matchups. Also, Diggs broke out last year.
Yeah, my only issue with Treadwell is Bridgewater. Bridgewater isn't a guy who's going to have a huge game, throw for a lot of touchdowns, throw for a lot of yards. He really doesn't go deep, and I don't... Just like Stephon Diggs came out last year, he had a few games, but then he was right back to inconsistency. He's going to have his games, but Teddy Bridgewater, I just can't trust him because he doesn't go down the field as Kirk Cousins does. Kirk Cousins will have a 400-yard game, 500-yard game, and 3 touchdowns. I just don't see Teddy Bridgewater. I feel like they're more of a
running team.
Of a running team.
Their offense does run through Adrian Peterson, but I think they will have their games.
And they also say that Treadwell will get faster. That's what the Vikings are hope for. But opposite Stephon Diggs, it's in a good position. I definitely think this is a more valuable, like same thing with Will Fuller, a better pick for the team than really fantasy value.
Agreed.
Then the next offensive pick was Paxton Lynch. What's your thoughts on Paxton Lynch?
Paxton Lynch, he's a real question mark. Like the other 2 quarterbacks, I really wouldn't expect QB1 numbers. He's the least likely to be the starter week 1 with the Broncos looking for a veteran, whether they sign Fitzpatrick or stick with Sanchez or make a trade for Bradford. I think Lynch really won't have an impact until maybe his next year, but
yeah,
he's being drafted in Dynasty.
I really wouldn't touch Paxton Lynch in a fantasy formats unless you're in a dynasty league. But I like this pick for the Broncos. They got the defense. It makes sense for their scheme. He's a guy who's mobile. He can get out the pocket, a lot of play actions, and he doesn't have to do much. They got their run game and everything. So I definitely like the pick for the Broncos. But in a fantasy value, I just don't see it there. If you had to take one quarterback in this draft class of fantasy, who would you take?
For this year, I would probably want Goff because he's most likely to be the starter, and he's going to get those reps, even though Rams may be the worst team out of the 3, but Wentz and Lynch, you probably not going to be week 1 starters.
Yeah, I agree with you, but they're probably the best player in this draft, fantasy-wise, is definitely Ezekiel Elliott. Yeah, but it's going to be interesting to see where a lot of these other running backs and wide receivers go, which is always those guys who, like Stephon Diggs, who you're not going to draft, but it's just good to keep an eye on, know their name, because maybe they could eventually become a nice waiver wire option for you.
Later in the season.
Yeah. But that's it for us. If you enjoyed, give it a thumbs up, and make sure you follow us at FF in the Zone, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.